نحمد ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد بسم الله. Today inshallah we will begin from verse number 28 of Surah Ahzab. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك إن كنتن تردن الحياة الدنيا وزينتها فتعالين أمتعكن وسرحكن سراحا جميلا. O Prophet, say to your wives, if you should desire the worldly life and its adornment, then come, I will provide for you and give you a gracious release. وَإِن كُنتُنَّ تُرِدْنَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَالدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ أَعَدَّ لِلْمُحْسِنَاتِ مِنكُنَّ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. But if you should desire Allah and His Messenger and the home of their hereafter, then indeed Allah has prepared for the doers of good among you a great reward. متعكن means أعطيكن متعة الطلاق وهي مال يعطيه الزوج لمطلقته. I will give you a parting gift at the time of separation. And أسرحكن أطلقكن, I will divorce you. And جميلا means بلا أذى أو ضرر, without any harm. The wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a request to increase their stipend, their allowance. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam disliked this request. And he disliked it so much that he decided not to engage with them for about a month. So after about 29 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed these verses to give the wives an option that either they stay with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and get the reward in the hereafter, or that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam divorced them and they leave with grace and some wealth, and then they can continue their life happily however they wished. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam first gave this option to Aisha Ta'ala Anha, as it comes in a narration narrated by Aisha Ta'ala Anha in Bukhari. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to her, Inni dhakirun laki amran fala alayki an tasta'jili hatta tasta'miri abawayk. I'm going to mention to you something, but you should not hasten to give your reply unless you consult your parents. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was advising her to consult with Abu Bakr Ta'ala Anhu and her mother before declaring her choice. But Aisha Ta'ala Anha did not hesitate at all, and she declared her choice. فَقُلْتُ لَهُ ففي أي هذا أستأمر أبوي فإني أريد الله ورسوله والدار الآخرة. Why should I consult my parents? Verily I seek Allah, His Prophet, and the home of the hereafter. Aisha Ta'ala Anha did not hesitate for a moment in making her choice, and similarly when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave the same choice to all of his other wives, none of them decided to take divorce, and instead they chose to stay with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. يا نساء النبي من يأتي منكن بفاحشة مبينة يضاعف لها العذاب ضعفين وكان ذلك على الله يسيرا. O wives of the Prophet, whoever of you should commit a clear immorality, for her the punishment would be doubled, and ever is that for Allah easy. ومن يقنت منكن لله ورسوله وتعمل صالحا نؤتها أجرها مرتين وأعتدنا لها رزقا كريما. And whoever of you devoutly obeys Allah and His Messenger and does righteousness, we will give her reward twice, and we have prepared for her a noble provision. So بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ means مَعَصِيَةٍ ظَاهِرَةٍ, open sin. And Ibn Abbas was reported to have said that it means nushuz, yani being rebellious or having a bad attitude. And the afain means marratain, twice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here warns the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as well as gives them a glad tiding. And this really highlights their special status in the Ummah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They are to be role models for all believing women, and they will be held to a higher standard of expectation. If they commit an immoral act, their punishment will be doubled. On the other hand, since they decided to remain with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and bear all the hardships that come along with this companionship, there is glad tidings for them that any good deed will be rewarded twice for them as well. So let's review verses 28 to 31. Women can be given the choice to divorce, as we learn in this case. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave a choice to his wives to select between staying with him or choosing a divorce instead. When there is separation between spouses, it should be handled in an honorable manner. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam here mentions how if they decide to leave, then they could do so, and that will be done in an amicable way. As a matter of fact, there will be even some parting gift given as part of this separation. And all wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam chose to stay with him despite given an option to live a more comfortable life in this world, because truly they wanted the reward of the hereafter and to be with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Jannah. يا نساء النبي لستن كأحد من النساء إن اتقيتن فلا تخضعن بالقول ويطمع الذي في قلبه مرض وقلن قولا معروفا. O wives of the Prophet, you are not like anyone among women. If you fear Allah, then don't be soft in speech, lest he in whose heart is disease should covet, but speak with appropriate speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a special status to the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in this verse. And notice the use of the term ka'ahadim minan nisa, meaning they're not like any other woman in the world. So a question comes to mind. Are the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam superior to all the women in the world in all times? We get the answer in the verse of Surah Al-Imran, verse 42. وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. And mention when the angel said, O Maryam, indeed Allah has chosen you and purified you and chosen you above the women of the worlds. So we find Maryam alayhi salam is declared in this verse as chosen over women of all the worlds. But then we also find reference to other women who are chosen in a narration. Narrated by Anas radiallahu anhu Tirmidhi, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, حسبك من نساء العالمين مريم ابنة عمران وخديجة بنت خويلد وفاطمة بنت محمد وآسية امرأة فرعون. Sufficient for you among the women of mankind are Maryam bint Imran, Khadija bint Khuwailid, Fatima bint Muhammad, and Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. So scholars derive from this verse and then the hadith that even though the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have special status over others, it is these four women, Maryam alayhi salam, Khadija radiallahu anha, Fatima radiallahu anha, and Asiya alayhi salam, who are superior to all women in all times, and Allah knows best. Then further on, فَلَا تَخْضَعْنَ بِالْقَوْلِ means فَلَا تَتَحَدَّثْنَ مَعَ الْأَجَانِبِ بِصَوْتٍ لَيِّنٍ. Do not talk with strangers in a soft voice. مَرَضٌ means شَهْوَةٌ وَمَيْلٌ إِلَى النِّسَاءِ, lust or inclination towards women. قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفًا قَوْلٌ بَعِيدًا عَنِ الرِّيبَةِ, a speech far away from suspicion or misinterpretation. In this verse, the wives of Nabi are instructed that they should not speak to non-mahram men in a manner that raises temptation in the person spoken to. And not only should they be careful with the tone of the voice, but the words should also be carefully chosen so the listener does not get the wrong impression and develops an ill thought about them. And similar to other places in the Quran, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is directly addressed, the purpose is also to apply the same instruction, the command, to the rest of the ummah. And here, when the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are addressed, all the women are indirectly addressed too. That they should be mindful in how they engage with non-mahram men, where they have to have a conversation. this is where we should reflect in our day-to-day interactions and think about situations that there is interaction between men and women. As an example, in many office settings, there are meetings, and similarly, in colleges, schools, there is not a gender separation. And in all these places, it is very important for women to be careful in how they engage with fellow students or colleagues, and they should really be focused on getting the task done at hand and without showing any kind of softness or gentleness in their voice so that it doesn't elicit any wrong thought in the person spoken to. وقرن في بيوتكن ولا تبرجن تبرج الجاهلية الأولى وأقمنا الصلاة وآتينا الزكاة وأطعنا الله ورسوله إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. And abide in your houses and do not display yourself as was the display of the former times of ignorance, and establish prayer and give zakah and obey Allah and His Messenger. Allah intends only to remove from you the impurity of sin, O people of the Prophet's household, and to purify you with extensive purification. وَقَرْنَا means ilzamna, stay, remain. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا لَا تُظْهِرْنَا مُحَاسِنَكُنَّ, do not reveal your good looks or your beauty. Al-Jahiliyyat al-Ula means التي قبل al-Islam, the days of ignorance prior to the advent of Islam. And al-Rijsa means al-Adha, was-Su, wal-Ithm, harm, impurity, or sin. We see that the verse begins with the command وَقَرْنَا فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ, to stay in the houses. But it cannot be taken as a command for women not to leave their homes in absolute sense. Because we know in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, women used to go to masjid. They used to participate in battles. They visited house of parents. They went out to take care of sick ones or to offer condolence on deaths of their relatives. Narrated by Aisha Ta'ala Anha in Bukhari, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, قَدْ أُذِنَ لَكُنَّ أَن تَخْرُجْنَ لِحَوَائِجِكُنَّ. O women, you have been allowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go out for your needs. And then another narration narrated by Abdullah bin Umar ta'ala anhu in Sunan Abi Dawood, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لا تمنعوا نساءكم المساجد وبيوتهن خير لهن. Do not prevent your women from visiting the mosque, but their houses are better for them. So what does it mean when this verse says to remain in the houses? Well, it means not to go out unnecessarily. And when indeed you have to go out, it should not be in a provocative clothing that attracts the attention of non-mahram men and causes fitna. You should go out in a dress that covers your beauty rather than exposing it. Then further on, more commands are given to the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. وَأَقِمْنَا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتِينَا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطِعْنَا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the core practices of Islam: to pray, salah, to give zakah, and to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Of course, the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam were all practicing believers. So why were they directly addressed here? Scholars say this is to emphasize that the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam were not exempted from the obligations, irrespective of their relationship with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then in the second part of the verse, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors Ahlul Bayt with a special blessing that He will keep them protected from evil and He will instill virtuous qualities in them. Now, there's some discussion in books of Tafseer around the definition of Ahlul Bayt. We find a narration in Tirmidhi that mentions the people of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's household. Narrated by Salama anha in Tirmidhi, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam put a garment over Hassan anhu, Hussein anhu, Ali and Fatima anhuma, and said, Allahumma ha'ulai ahlu bayti wa khasati adhib anhum al-rijsa wa tahhirhum tathira. O Allah, these are the people of my house and the close ones. So remove the rijs from them and purify them thoroughly. فقالت سلمة وأنا معهم يا رسول الله قال إنك على خير. So Salama anha asked, and am I with them, O Messenger of Allah? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam replied, you are upon goodness. From this narration, it seems that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam only included Ali Radiallahu anhu, Fatima Radiallahu anha, and Hassan and Hussein Radiallahu anhuma among Ahlul Bayt. But we combine this narration and the context of this verse, and the scholars then explain that the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are also counted among Ahlul Bayt, since they are addressed in the verses before and after this one. And as a matter of fact, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also named Salman al-Farisi in a narration to be among Ahlul Bayt. So the Ahlul Bayt are not restricted to the immediate family of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but it also includes the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Allah knows best. وَاذْكُرْنَ مَا يُتْلَى فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ لَطِيفًا خَبِيرًا. And remember what is recited in your houses of the verses of Allah and wisdom. Indeed, Allah is ever subtle and aware. Hikmah in this verse means ahadith Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or sunnah. So wazkurna gives two meanings. It means to remember yourself, and it also means to mention something to other people. In these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to remember the obligations mentioned in Quran and Sunnah, as well as pass them on to others. So this is an obligation not only restricted to the Quran, but also to the teachings of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to be passed on. So let's review verses 32 to 34. The wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have a special status over all other women of the world, and women should not speak in a soft and attractive way to non-mahram men. Women should adopt a dress of modesty in public when there's a need to go out. And the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam are counted among the people of his household. إن المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والقانتين والقانتات والصادقين والصادقات والصابرين والصابرات والخاشعين والخاشعات والمتصدقين والمتصدقات والصائمين والصائمات والحافظين فروجهم والحافظين فروجهم والحافظات والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة أجرا عظيما. Indeed, the Muslim men and Muslim women, the believing men and believing women, the obedient men and obedient women, the truthful men and truthful women, the patient man and patient woman, the humble man and humble woman, the charitable man and charitable woman, the fasting man and fasting woman, the men who guard their private parts and the women who do so, and the men who remember Allah often and the women who do so. For them Allah has prepared forgiveness and a great reward. وَالْقَانِتِينَ means وَالْمُطِيعِينَ الْخَاضِعِينَ لِلَّهِ, the obedient, those who submit to Allah. And وَالْخَاشِعِينَ means الْخَائِفِينَ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَالْمُتَوَاضِعِينَ, those who fear Allah and remain humble. الْحَافِظِينَ فُرُوجَهُمْ أي عن الزنا ومقدماته, meaning those who do not commit adultery, including actions that lead to adultery, like looking at or touching a non-mahram, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a list of qualities in this verse, and reassures that those who exhibit these qualities, He will not only forgive them, but reward them immensely in the hereafter. When you read this verse, you feel right away that it is different than how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses people in many other places in Quran. Sometimes people are collectively referenced as Ya ayyuhan nas or Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu. But the general style of Quran is that it uses a masculine gender for addressing people, even when the command applies to women as well. When women at the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam observed this style of Quran, they sometimes felt left out, as it comes in narration narrated by Umara al-Ansariya radhiyallahu anha in Tirmidhi. She says, أنها أتت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت ما أرى كل شيء إلا للرجال وما أرى النساء يذكرن بشيء فنزلت هذه الآية إن المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الآية. She came to Prophet ﷺ and said, I do not see but that everything is for the men, and I do not see anything being mentioned for the women. So this ayah was revealed, indeed the Muslim men and the Muslim women, the believing men and the believing women, and so on and so forth. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically repeats the same attributes for men and women separately to reassure their inclusion and to announce the eligibility of men and women equally for rewards at the same time. Now, there's one thing to also notice, that the Muslimin and Muslimat are mentioned separate from Mu'mineen and Mu'minat. And this indicates that Iman is something other than Islam in this context. And to be more specific, we get another reference in Surah Hujurat, verse number 14. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. The Bedouins said, we believe. Say, you believe not, but you only say, we have surrendered in Islam, for faith has not yet entered your hearts. So definitely there are different levels of faith, Islam being the basic level, and then Iman is the next level up. When you read this verse again, you'll also notice that all attributes are mentioned once, but when it came to the dhikr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qualified it by adding the verse kathira, وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ. And we also find similar references in other verses, Surah Anfal, verse 45, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And then the same comes in Surah Jummah, verse number 10, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. So what is the wisdom behind mentioning kathra with zikr? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made dhikr so easy that there is no excuse for people not to perform it abundantly. You can do dhikr with or without wudu. You can be walking, standing, sitting, lying down, or in any other position. You can say it loudly just by moving your lips or in your heart. There's almost no prerequisite for dhikr. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has made it even easier for us by teaching us du'as for everyday routines. We have du'a before and after eating, du'a for changing clothes, du'a for getting in and out of the house, du'a for traveling, du'a for sleeping and waking up, etc. Hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us in this verse and similar verses to do dhikr abundantly. And this is how we can accumulate greater reward in the hereafter. So let's review verse number 35. It mentions equality of men and women in being rewarded for their good deeds. Even though in many other places of Quran, there is a reference made to men only, those commands are also applicable to women in general. And similarly, there is a difference mentioned between the level of faith of a Muslim versus a mu'min being at a higher level than a Muslim. And excessive remembrance of Allah is among the means to gain His closeness in a very easy way. So we'll stop here, inshallah. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم.